Are you a man who's struggling to gain confidence as a leader? Do you lack clarity in how to find it? Well, this is the Men Are Forged podcast, and I'm your host, Cartwright Morris. And like many of us, I too have struggled to gain confidence in many areas of my life that I needed confidence to excel. So I went on a pursuit to gain confidence by taking more risk in my decision-making and in my relationships. And it led not only to confidence in my life, but success. Each week, you'll hear men speak about the risks taken and the confidence gained in their business, relationships, and faith. And if you're looking for the same, you can go to menareforged.com to find out more about what I do in my confidence-gaining leadership program. Now for today's episode. I got a great guest today, J.R. Rivera. J.R. is a podcaster himself. He is his podcast is The Results Leader, and he does this with the Podcast Factory. I welcome you to go check out the podcastfactory.com. Well, J.R., it's great to have you in today.
Brother, let's make sure that we start this on the right foot, because I didn't warn you, but do not call me a podcaster. All right. I'm a businessman with a podcast. Let's get it.
That's right. I should have, by looking at your website, I should have known that. But yeah, he's a businessman with a podcast, because this is just a great marketing tool. It's a great way to get out your message as someone who's in podcasting, who's also would rather be a businessman with a podcast. Hey, I like that. Man, we're starting on the right foot here. Well, JR, I mean, before we just dive into your story, we talked about lists a little bit on camera. You just got back from a ski trip with your family, getting your son on skis. As a snowboarder, I know that's hard a little bit, but I would love just curious the value of taking your kids and having them experiences outside of their normal, and how is that a value for you as a father?
Man, so we're going right into that. And to be perfectly transparent, it's mildly offensive that my son is on skis, because I spent the last 10 years snowboarding. But it was a valuable lesson for us, because we love getting on the mountain. My wife and I'll call her Cupcake. And Cupcake and I love getting on the mountain. And it was our dream to have our son on the mountain with us. And we spent the last 3 to 4 years and thousands of dollars investing in snowboarding lessons, only for the kid to throw tantrums, be upset, and never get on the mountain with us. And I had this epiphany one day, brother. I was praying on it and thinking about it. And I asked myself, what matters? And the only thing that matters is the boy on the mountain with us. So does it matter how I get there? Skis or snowboard or toboggan or whatever, as long as he's on the mountain with us. And so that was a pretty interesting lesson that we had recently. And it was so fruitful when we put him on the mountain and we had our first ride together. We're like, why did we wait 4 years? Why didn't we just do this the first year? And that was ego.
Yeah.
That was ego holding us back. We're a snowboard family.
You're right.
Right? Who cares? We're a family. And so I've got four pillars of purpose, and they go like this: faith, family, fitness, finances. And so if I'm right with the man upstairs, then I can take care of my family. If I got my family right, I can take care of my body, my temple that I use to serve. And I found that when I have those 3 things taken care of, the finances seem to work out. And so I think all the pieces fit together, but you got to know what your priorities are. Yeah.
And that's good. You just recognize that. I mean, how many people just not having a self-awareness? I'm sure all the snowboarders out there listening probably know that feeling, and ththey're like that itch in the back of their brain, like, all right, fine. Because they're right. The value of them being on the mountain with y'all needs to be higher than. And he can get into snowboarding. I snowboarded the first time when I was 26. So, thankfully it was a powder day. So
ooh, lovely.
So JR, so you talked about your 4 pillars there of purpose. I know that wasn't always the case for you in your life, of valuing your relationship with God and family and all those things. So yeah, how would you describe your story of coming to faith in your history with God?
I'm blessed, okay, because my parents did the best they could. And they were Sunday Catholics, put me in Catholic school. I went to Catholic school and learned the virtues until I got kicked out in 5th grade. So the good news is
there a story there?
I was just a bad kid. My parents worked really hard, and they moved us. Like, we lived in New York and we were in the Bronx, and the Bronx was really rough at that time. And they moved us to Brooklyn, to the edge of a nice neighborhood, to the edge, because that's what they could afford. And there was a Catholic school there and a church, and they worked a lot. I was a latchkey kid. And so because they were so busy working and providing for us, they weren't really involved in what was going on in school. And so I was a little wildling. And I remember one year when we were going from 5th to 6th grade, they told my parents, yeah, we don't want him back. we don't want your money. And that's a lot, right? We don't want your money. You know, they love money.
Seriously. Yeah.
I had to go to public school. But I think the seeds of virtue were planted early, and I feel fortunate for that. And of course, there's ups and downs in life, and we go away from our faith and we come back. And it wasn't until many, many years later when my mom passed away that I got back into my faith because of my dad's example. He's like, I know you're confused. I know this is a hard time. We need to pray. We need to get to God. And I was, okay, Dad, whatever you say, I don't know how to deal with this. And fortunately, that brought my father and I much, much closer. And around the same time, I met my wife. And one of the things that she loved about us, right, because you're getting the whole family when you get married. One of the things she loved about us was I was close with Dad, and we went to church, and she was seeking to get back to church. And so it started there, and it's just been snowballing over the years. I mean, I've been with my wife, I don't know, 18, 19 years, just snowballing closer to God, ups, downs, back, forth. But I found that when I have my faith right, I can serve as I was meant to serve. And that's the duty that I have to my family, the duty I have to my clients, the duty I have to the work and my mission in this world.
Yeah. So was there, would you say you're still a Catholic?
Still. What?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm 100% Catholic, brother.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. So what was the turning point in your life? Would you feel like there was a mid-20s? Was there a low point that was kind of the breaking point? Or was it just constantly like just improving, continue to draw him back to himself? How would you describe that?
Yeah, I mean, the thing was, when my mom died, I went back to church. And at that time, I hadn't finished my confirmation. So I got confirmed. And then soon after that, a couple of years later, I got married in the church. And we did the same thing that our parents showed us, and that we grew up with, okay, church on Sundays. And that's what you do, and it's a thing. And that was it for a while. And then when we decided to have children, we were together nearly, 8 years before we decided to have a kid. And we tried naturally, vigorously for 2 years, and didn't get anywhere. And we decided love is love, and we're going to adopt. And we decided to adopt from the Philippines and through a faith organization. And one of the things was, hey, you got to be practicing. That was one of the caveats of going through this organization. And we're like, okay, well, we need to practice a little bit more. And ever since that boy has been here, I find that I've learned empathy. I don't think I knew before. Just
wow,
the way it is. And I found myself seeking wisdom and seeking virtue so that I could instill it into this boy, because I think that a lot of people get this wrong. And here it is. Listen closely. People say they're raising kids. And I think that's wrong. We're not raising kids. We're raising adults, productive members of society. And in order to raise an adult, you need to instill virtue in them. And in order to instill virtue in them, you got to be practicing. And so I got to practice hard. in order to give this kid what he needs. Just like my body, right? I work out hard because I want to be able to lift him up and carry him and show him what a man is.
Man, that's good. Yeah, what is the saying that I keep hearing, and it's so true, is more as I get the older I get, more is what is it? More is seen versus taught. Like your child tends to absorb what they see versus what they are being actual taught, and actually seeing a man of virtue. And you talk about showing you what a man is, and this is something that the Men Are Forged that I'm trying to get in this conversation is like how do we define what that is, right? Because we've got a lot of definitions out there in culture, but I think especially our belief in God, He's telling us something of what a man should look like, especially a man right now. So how would you define that?
We're leaders.
Yeah.
We're leaders, and we're leaders in every area of our life. And that's why I've got those pillars is like, I'm a faith leader. And just the other day, I got the most beautiful gift. And my wife and I don't know if you've ever heard of the Hallow app. Love this app. It's a great app. It's a Catholic app. And there's prayers and meditations and music and all kinds of things. And my wife listens to the daily gospel now. It's one of the things. And she wanted to get into the daily practice because I've had the daily practice. I get up in the morning, brother, and it's a rosary. I'm banging out a rosary. That's right. Then I'm getting into my Bible, and I'm getting into that quiet time because I need to get my head right for this day, and I need to armor myself for what's coming. And so I've been doing that. She sees a change in me. She wants to do it too. And the guy's name is Jeff Cavins that we listen to. He's a very entertaining fellow and reads the daily gospel and then preaches on it and gives you a message. And one of the messages recently, at the end of it, he said, "Go thank whoever brought you back." And she came over, she gave me a hug and kiss, and she said, "Thank you for bringing me closer." That's what a man is, a leader.
Man, that's really good. That's fascinating. So where do you see that translate into, other areas of your life? How do you see that actually now as like you said, a businessman with a podcast? I know you have such a high value for podcasting because of just the message you have to share in growing a business. So take us a little bit on the journey of, why you see the value in business and specifically podcasting. Today's episode is brought to you by Thrive Marriage Lab. If you want your marriage to thrive, this is a great opportunity to you, because strong marriages are the bedrock of strong churches, organizations, families, and community. This is a 12-month pathway for any of you that are looking to really have weekly engagement with experienced marriage counselors, not just one, but many. So go to restory.life/thrive to get on the waiting list for this great program that starts in April. That's restory.life/thrive. And make sure you put the word Forge in the promo code to receive a discount on your monthly fee. Now, back to the episode.
So I went through the downturn in 2008, and I was in real estate, and I got slammed.
Yeah.
I lost it all. I mean, it was an incredible beating that we took. Dad lost his house. I lost my house. I lost myself. I didn't know who I was. And it took me a while to rebuild. It took me a while to get back into the swing of things. And one of the tools that helped me get out of the funk, luckily, a friend put me onto Audible because I didn't read much at that time. You can imagine, because I didn't graduate high school, right? You can imagine the voracious reader I must have been, although now there's books behind me, books around me, books everywhere. Yeah. But at that time, I wasn't a reader. Somebody put me onto Audible. I was enjoying that. I wanted more. And I found something called iTunes, and they had podcasts. And these podcasts had education in them, free education on topics I never heard of.
Yeah.
Like entrepreneurship, internet business, marketing. And so I went on a deep dive into podcasts, and I realized there was so much I didn't know, and there was so much information there. And this is way back, like 2006, 7, 8. So it was a little different than it is today. Proliferation of podcasts, we can get them in our car now. It's easy. It was a different thing. You had to work for it. But when I got into the idea of diversifying my income, because I got slammed in real estate, I didn't want that to happen again. So I wanted another stream of income. And I heard about this internet business type of thing. So I started looking at how I could do that internet business thing. And part of building your brand at that time was to be a thought leader, doing air quotes for people who are not watching us, thought leader. And in order to be a thought leader, you had to have a blog. So the guy that can't read ain't going to write. But I did see this podcasting thing as my way to do it. And so that was exactly what I did. I learned how to do the podcasting, the technical thing, get the message out there, connect with people, and build a brand with podcasting.
Man, okay, I got to put a pin in that, because that's really good. We need to come back. Forgive me, JR. We need to backtrack. You didn't graduate high school, so you grew up in Brooklyn. Got kicked out of Catholic elementary school, and you didn't graduate high school. So give me a little bit of the teen years. What happened? So your parents, they didn't let you didn't get to go back to elementary school. Give us a little bit of story of, and you didn't learn how to read. Help me there.
I mean, I wasn't a good reader. I could read.
Right.
Let's not make myself illiterate.
Right.
It's not like I could pound a book like I do now. Like now I can read a book a week or 2 books a week. But back then, reading was like reading each word and slowly going through it, where an audiobook was much, much easier. I was in the same way that my parents were doing their best to provide for us. They had a very narrow focus of what that meant. And that meant food on the table.
Yeah.
Roof over your head. Education didn't really play a part in that. And so I was oddly fortunate when we moved to Florida, because this is how broke we were. I came down, my brother came down, my dad came down, and my mom was going to join us. We didn't even... Man, I've never told anybody about this. Like, we slept in the master bedroom on blankets on the floor. We had a TV that somebody gave us on a 5-gallon bucket. And so we didn't have a phone. And so when they enrolled me in school.
And this is before cell phones.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. We didn't have a phone. So when they enrolled me into high school over there, we had no phone number. And that didn't change the entire time I was in high school. So I could act as badly as I wanted, get suspended as much as I wanted, misbehave as much as I wanted, and I'd be home to get the letter.
Yeah. Oh, wow. And what do you feel like? What about your behavior? Like, what you feel like you were? I mean, now that you're looking back, do you feel like you understood why that kid was acting out so much, and why he didn't value education, or he just figured, he was going to end up having a minimum wage job anyway? What was the devaluing and what was the acting out? Where do you feel like that came from?
I think that part of it was just teenage angst.
Yeah.
I was pissed that my parents moved me from Brooklyn to Deltona. I mean, I went from a city to nothing but woods. I wasn't happy about that. I didn't make that decision. They made it for me, but they did it for a reason. They were trying to give us a better life, because Brooklyn, especially the area we were in, was on the edge of tough times. Wanted to get us out of there pronto. But there was that resentment. There was, think about this. Acting so badly in school, and all the school does is send a letter. Like, do they really give a crap?
Yeah.
Letter, right? So nobody really cared. And I think that was part of the acting out. And then the challenge, right? I wasn't challenged or interested, and I didn't really see the benefit. And here's the weird part.
Yeah.
So straight D's would have been great. There were a lot of F's. And there was one class all 4 years that I was there that I had straight A's in.
Yeah.
TV productions, editing video, doing the news, putting together scripts.
How
Oh,
about
hey,
that?
the only thing I'm using right now.
Yeah. How about that?
So I think that I wasn't challenged. I wasn't focused. And like now, some of the things I know about myself is I need to work out. Like today, before I got on with you, I just did an hour to Orange Theory, burnt nearly 900 calories to get myself centered. I wasn't doing that when I was a kid. So the acting out was also part of not knowing any better, that I needed to take care of myself physically. So it was a combination of things.
Yeah. So you weren't in any sports or any activity whatsoever, nothing organized like that. Yeah.
Dude,
Yeah.
people say I was a rebel in high school because I just did my own thing. I was a reject.
Mm,
That's what I was. I was an outsider.
yeah. Okay. So let's go back to podcasting and getting to that in iTunes and figuring all that in the world where it was really, I mean, it's still relatively new even today, right? But, I mean, it was even, I mean, YouTube was kind of coming around a little bit around then, all that. So, yeah, what made you go, man, I could get really good with this, create a business and help others get their message out?
None of that. None of that
Yeah,
happened.
none of that.
None of that happened. What happened was I needed an avenue to create that personal brand.
Mhm.
And the avenue I found was I got my first Mac computer and I found GarageBand on there. And I realized, oh wow, I can record audio and I can do this podcast thing I've been hearing. I like them, so other people will probably like them. And I did that and I built a brand off of that. I met new people from that.
Mhm.
And eventually, as I got more mature and the business evolved, I got stuck at a certain point
Mhm.
where a couple of years the business didn't grow, and I thought, well, I don't I don't know what to do. I don't have anybody to help me, so what am I going to do? And I joined my first mastermind, and it was super expensive at that time. It was,
Yeah.
oh my gosh. And when I told Cupcake about it, she's like, you are insane. Please don't do it. Which is a common thread in our life. But I joined this mastermind and I wanted to work on I had created a real estate training business showing agents how to get listings, how to get appointments, how to do marketing online because I was doing it. And in that mastermind at that time, people were not interested in real estate at all. It's not like it is right now where it's super hot. And on the breaks, people would come to me and say, hey, I heard your podcast, because I was doing podcasts with some of my friends. I had multiple podcasts at that time, just talking with friends and sharing good words and good messages and trying to help our listeners. And hey, I heard you doing a podcast with this guy or that guy. How do you do that? Can you help me do that? The opportunity came to me. I was just open and listening. And I'm not going to take credit. Cupcake's like, well, if everybody's asking you about the podcast thing, shouldn't we be doing that?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's great. Leave it to a wife, right? To just throw that dagger. Like, oh yeah, duh.
Right.
So you say that I've seen you know in different avenues. You say this, believe that the right words from the right person at the right time can change your life. One, how are you helping others do that with podcasting? But also, like, where did that happen in your life? Has it happened multiple times? And yeah, and I would love just to hear your story from that. That's why that's such a tagline.
Bro, we just told the story. Hey,
Yeah.
Doug, why don't you go? Like this happens
Yeah.
all the time. You just
Yeah.
got to have your ears open. But yeah,
Mhm.
that's actually my mission, my life's purpose,
Mhm.
and what God put me on this planet for. And there's, all right, I have so many examples, but I want to give one from my buddy who I did the Making Agents Rich show with. And I did 180 shows with him, and that was our first big hit. But before that, we had tried a couple other podcasts that never really got anywhere, never got any traction. And I remember it was around 2012, I think, when he got married and I went to his wedding and we were doing a podcast together. And I told him I'm out. Like, dude, we're spending money. We're not making any money. We're not making any impact. I can't, I'm out. And he told me, and this guy has saved me multiple times, but he's like, dude, we're so close. Podcast is so close to breaking through. Don't get out yet. Just hang on a little bit longer. Let's give it another shot. And I said, man, I don't want to do this, but you, sir, have helped me out so much in my life. And I am going to listen to you and we're going to try this. Right. So we had this podcast that went on for, I don't know, a year or so, or half a year, 20 episodes. We burnt that down, took a few months break. He talked me back into it and we create the Making Agents Rich show. And that's when I started figuring out what I call direct response podcasting with a purpose, podcasting that leads listeners to taking action, whether that's buying your products or booking appointments. And we planned it out. We had a framework, and before we knew it, that thing was spinning off $4,000 a month. And I'm like, okay, all right. I guess the podcasting thing works. But if it wasn't for him telling me, don't quit, let's do this, let's give it another shot, I wouldn't be speaking with you right now, and I might be doing something totally different.
Yeah. So what is, and I'm asking for a friend, what is the secret to podcasting?
I don't know that there's a secret. I have a framework that I use that works for us. And there's a couple pieces that need to be in place. And I think this is where most people mess up when it comes to podcasting is, and I've done it. Okay. This is how I know from firsthand experience. People is like, they have the field of dreams mentality. Build it and they will come. Yeah. I'm going to build a podcast and all of a sudden all my problems are solved. Right. Wrong. That's not what's going to happen. And in fact, you're probably going to get burnt out, spin your wheels, and think that podcasting doesn't work. So I've developed the direct response podcasting framework, in where the first thing that we need to know, number one, we have to get crystal clear on who this podcast is for. Who do we serve? Who are we talking to? Right. So that it's clear to everybody who it's for. Number one. And if you're telling me your podcast is for everybody, you failed. So be aware. Okay. So number one, we do an exercise called the client cloner. And the idea is to get crystal clear on who we're talking to. That's number one. Number three, and this is another one that people just mess up all the time and it hurts to look at. And that's, what do you want the podcast to do for you? Nobody really thinks about that.
Yeah.
People, I want to share good messages. I want to talk. I want to be Joe Rogan, whatever. You're not him. Forget that. So what do you want that podcast to do for you? Really? And I like to simplify things. Like I said, do we want to sell more products? Do we want to book more appointments? What are you trying to do with this tool? Because if we know what we're trying to do with the tool, then we know how to instruct our listeners to take the steps to take that action. We call that the client matrix, planning that journey out from listener to appointment or listener to buyer, whatever the goal is. So that's 1 and 3. What's in between? We know who they are. We know what we want them to do. Now it's time to convince them.
Yeah, that's good.
Number 2 is the content vault. And the content vault unlocks all the value from your listeners in that it eliminates objections. It pre-sells them. It gets them ready to speak with you. And so that's where you start planning your episodes, because you know who you're talking to. You know what you want them to do. Now you got to plan out episodes to convince them to take that action that is good for them.
Right. Man, that's good. That's pretty simple. Straightforward. Yeah, that's good. And you take your clients through from beginning to end starting, creating a podcast to developing and getting, that's really awesome.
Backwards. I take them from, what do you want? I need to know, there's two things that I look for in my clients. And this is why I can't help everybody. Number one, more important than anything is, what is their mission? What are they trying to accomplish? Is it something that I can get behind? Because that's what I'm doing, right? I'm going to amplify your mission. So it better be a pretty darn good mission for me to get involved. So that's the one thing I look at. And the other thing, which we started this show with, is cash register. How do we make the cash register ring? So you got to have a business. You got to have something going on, and I can help you build a bridge from those people out there into your cash register, whether that's appointments, whether that's selling products, selling books, getting booked on stages. I don't know what that is, but I need to know that you have a business and a goal, and you have a mission, and then I can help you put those pieces together. And then we talk about building the podcast.
Yeah, that's really good. That's interesting. Well, JR, I think your story is fascinating, especially just with the education piece. And I do like this question from my podcasters, especially those who, don't all have all the degrees on the wall. And I feel like you can really encourage them. So what would you tell your 25-year-old self from what you know now?
There's a few things. Number one is, I'm going to be nice here and say STFU. Shut the Is little cocky Johnny. Johnny thought he knew everything. And what I've realized as I'm getting older is that I don't know anything. And that's why I have a search for wisdom that will last my entire life. So number one is just be quiet and listen. Be quiet and listen. That's important. And talk less, listen more, right? So all that right there. Number two, stay curious.
Yeah.
Stay curious. And that's where I've been blessed that I didn't do what they told me to do. And this is the difference between Cupcake and I. And I'm not saying it's good or bad. I'm just saying that she went to school. She's got the college degree. She's got the MBA, and she is burnt out still to this day on learning. She's like, I would study, put the information in there, download it for a test and not retain it. And she got burnt out on that. And I feel bad for her because she participated in the school system the way you should. I did not.
Yes.
So the blessing that I have is staying curious, dude. If I want to know something, I'm going to read a book. I'm going to listen to a podcast. I'm going to look up YouTube videos to learn. And my search for wisdom is never ending, because when I get interested in something, I can research it with books. I can spend time in it. And if it serves me, great. If it doesn't, I can just move to something else. And so staying curious is the second one. The third one, and I think this one actually brings the other two together. Jim Rohn, American entrepreneur, pretty popular guy. If you don't know him, look him up. Said, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And a lot of us, and this is another blessing since I was bad in school, a lot of us cling on to those old relationships, our high school, college friends, people who are going nowhere, and people who sometimes don't want you to go anywhere either. And so I would say that be very, very protective about the people that you keep around you. Make sure that they're good people, people of virtue, people who will lift you up and cheer you on and want you to win and want you to go bigger. And that's hard to find in your local neighborhood or at the PTA meeting, or even sometimes at church. You might not find that.
Yeah.
But what we have to do is be on that search, that quest to find those people. And that's why I join Mastermind. That's why I get coaching. That's why I read books. There's no excuse not to elevate the people around you, even if it's going to the library and getting a biography. So shut up and listen, stay curious, and elevate your environment to elevate your results.
Man, that's so great. Man, and I feel like that's very consistent with a lot of the leaders that I know in my life. Like, yeah, just constantly staying a student, surround yourself with great people. That's really good. Well, JR, man, I appreciate you coming on. This has been amazing. I loved hearing your story. Where's the best way for people to find you?
So a couple things. I mean, if you want to get inspired, if you want to get uplifted, if you want to hear the right words from the right person at the right time that can change your life, go to the Podcast Factory. We have a little tab called Client Showcase. Find your mentor. Elevate your environment. Listen to one of the shows. I think at the time we're recording this, there's at least 80 or 90 shows on there. Different people. That's number one. And you, my friend, if you've got a message, if you've got a mission, if you've got a purpose, and you want to get it out to more people, connect with me at thepodcastfactory.com. There's a place to book a call right on there.
Awesome. And that's booking a call with you? Specific? Yeah. Wow. With the man, JR. Man, well, thank you for coming on, man. It's been a blast talking with you.
Brother, thank you for having me. Thank you for the fun conversation, and thank you for your generosity and the work that you're doing.
Yeah, well, thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for listening to the Men Are Forged podcast. Like I said at the beginning, confidence is a thing that we struggle with as men, especially in leadership roles. And if that's you and you want to find out more how I help men do that and step more into their leadership in all areas of their life, then you can go to menarforged.com. You could sign up for a free call or even a free coaching session. I give 30-minute free coaching sessions for first-time potential clients. So go to menarforged.com and find out more how I can help you become the confident leader that you want to be.